Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So let me make sure I am up. I actually have good news. Bizarre news, but good news. Sound is at 100. Guys, I check this, always check this, because I've done entire shows where there was no sound. Like 20 minutes, and you find out after the fact that there was no sound on the entire show. It was like, Jamal is trying to tell us something. He's trying to tell us something. Yeah, I'm trying to tell you that I forgot to put the fucking volume on. Yeah. So, Sunday, and it's good news. Now, this took place yesterday, but it took place yesterday evening. I call it breaking, so I don't get the chance to often say breaking. But the teachers apparently are going to get their raise. So, the teachers have been striking in West Virginia in order to get a pay increase. West Virginia was ranked, I think it was like 48th, 47th, 48th. I've seen 48th in some parts, 47th in some other documents. In the nation with regards to the standpoint of pay. They went on strike. Now, it supposedly is illegal to strike in West Virginia, and they did it anyway. They did it fucking anyway. Good for fucking you. I don't know how you make it illegal to strike. That's amazing to me. And I don't know why anybody would accept that being illegal. You have the right to say, we don't necessarily want to do this. And I know they're talking about union protections, but it's kind of besides the point. These guys fought back, and they won. And this should be a model for the rest of the country. This should be a model for the rest of the country. So let's take a look at this story. This came out in The Hill. Like I said, this was extraordinarily bizarre. The Senate... So the governor, Justice, the governor's name, Justice, last name is Justice. The governor negotiated a deal for a 5% increase. There were a few other things, but they negotiated a deal for a 5% increase. This would have also cascaded to the rest of the other public sector workers. So again, this idea of union action benefiting everybody else. It's not isolated to union itself. It benefits everyone else in that particular society, and in this case, public sector workers. House passed it outright. Completely passed it outright. Now, come to find out, all of the houses, all of the seats in the House are up for grabs. That is so fucking bizarre. But all of them are up for grabs. And that House was motivated, and that House, for all intents and purposes, voted overwhelmingly by like 90-something% to give them the raise. The Senate, not so much. Not so much. Now, the Senate, I think they're like up 30. There's a little more than 30 seats up for grabs in the Senate. And it stalled in the Senate. Now, this is fucking amazing because you're essentially saying, despite being ranked like 48th in the nation, you still don't want to give the teachers their pay. Now, people bitch about teachers, and they bitch about them a lot when they're talking about the education system in the United States. How about not paying them? Do you believe that not paying them in a decent way assists? Meaning you're giving them to your goddamn kids. Your kids are supposed to be with these people for the course of the day. Don't you want these people taken care of to some degree? Or at the very least, don't you want them to have the benefits or I guess what I'm saying is, do you value that position or don't you value that position? And should you pay for that particular position? We should invest more in our schools. And the idea that you're sticking it to teachers, like teachers are living hound the hog, is problematic. 5% is not a massive amount of money. And this is doubly so, meaning they were being hit twice with this. A, they weren't necessarily getting paid much, and B, on top of not getting paid much, their health insurance was going up. It's like this double gouge. Yeah, it's a double gouge. So the Senate has put this through. Now, the weird part about this is governor pushes for it, House passes it, the Senate, it stalls. Now, the teachers stayed on strike. The most beautiful part about the story to me is that the workers themselves made the decision to not go back to work until it was very clear that this was going to get passed. Meaning, we're not just going to go back just because our leadership tells us to go back. We're not just going to go back because the governor says he's going to do it. We need it signed. We want it House, Senate, and we want the governor to put a stamp of approval on it. We want it done. We're not going back until it's done. And fact is, it's a good thing they didn't go back before it was done, because it stalled in the Senate. Meaning, if they would have went back, it would have stalled in the Senate. And then what? They're going to go back on strike again after going back to work because of something wasn't taking place? Yes, you could do that. What they did was the best option. Essentially saying, if you guys are going to work out a deal, you're going to work out a deal. We're not going back to work until this deal is signed and it's put through. We understand how government works, and we understand that it can get stalled in either branch. We're not going back until then. Now, the leadership had agreed for them to go back, and they said no. I love that part. I absolutely love that part. I mean, this kind of harkens back to the election where you had some people who went for Trump. A big share of the union, at least more so than normal, went for Trump over Clinton on this. They bucked the leadership. Now, in this case, again, they bucked what the leadership wanted. So I like that they did this. Not only do I like that they did this, it bore fruit. Now, the Senate bill stalled, and the Senate was pushing back on this particular bill, the Republicans in the Senate. They passed the bill by accident. The goofballs in West Virginia in the Senate passed the bill by the accident. They were trying to fuck over the workers by giving them less than what they wanted, accidentally passing the bill that came out of the House, which was essentially the 5% increase that they were looking for. Those goofballs passed the bill by accident. These people are literally making laws in West Virginia. And the idea that they're passing shit and they don't know what's in the thing that they're passing is embarrassing and disastrous for the rest of the public that they put their faith in these people. I don't care. They passed it. I'll take it. I don't care. West Virginia lawmakers try to give teachers smaller raise, accidentally passed bill giving them the full raise. The West Virginia State Senate on Saturday tried to vote to give teachers a smaller raise hike than negotiated, but accidentally voted on a bill giving teachers the requested raise. The chaos in the Senate legislature comes as teachers in the state have been on strike for 7 days in demand of a raise. The State House of Representatives, Jim Justice, I love that name, Jim Justice, he's like a superhero. Governor Jim Justice had both approved a 5% raise hike. Republicans in the state Senate on Saturday thought they had voted unanimously on a bill that only offered a 4% raise, according to local reporters. How dickish is that, by the way? How dickish is that? 5% raise is what they negotiated. 5% is not a large sum of money at all. 5% is a small sum of cash, particularly in the context of the job that these guys do, the important job that these guys do with our fucking kids. I don't have any kids. I'm being empathetic towards people who have kids. I'm just trying to make this kind of point. 1%. Why are you shafting them for 1%? The only reason I can imagine somebody doing that, it's not a fiscal thing at that point. It's to make a point. It's this thing of, we're not going to bow to the will of you guys, so we're not going to give you the thing that you're asking for. It's mightily dickish to do. It's mightily dickish to do, and at that point, it's just political posturing. These people's lives. These people are pushing for the 5%. Do you honestly think they want to be on strike? Do you believe that? Do you believe they're doing this willy-nilly? If they're doing it because they felt compelled to do it. When people take action in this way, they're usually doing it because that need for comfort and the need to maintain the job and maintain the way that status quo is. Things have become so difficult where that need for comfort becomes less important. Meaning the motivator and the driver in this is for them to do something, because not doing something is just an intolerable situation. They're not doing this for their health. In an odd way, yes, they are doing this for their health. But they're not doing this because it's something they necessarily want to do. They're doing this out of some degree of necessity. Let's keep going. I find this to be amazing. These guys are fucking idiots. They accidentally voted. How do you not know what bill you're voting on? I'm not bitching. I'm glad that they passed it. That's kind of besides the point. I wish they would have just passed it outright. But you're the representatives of the state of West Virginia. And bills are coming up where you don't know what the bills are? Are you shitting me? Are you shitting me? That's amazing. The chaos in the state legislature comes as teachers in the state have been on strike for 7 days in demand of a raise. The State House of Representatives, Jim Justice, have both approved a 5% raise. Republicans in the Senate on Saturday thought they had voted unanimously on a bill that offered only a 4% raise, according to local reporters. Shortly after, lawmakers realized they had mistakenly voted to approve the House 5% raise bill. Republicans immediately began working to repeal the law, instead to pass a 4% raise. They was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We gave you 1% more than what we were supposed to give you. We need to take that back. Democrats reportedly opposed repealing the bill and cheered the accidental vote to approve a 5% raise. That's amazing. That's amazing. That's so... Look, one of two things is true. Either they are massively incompetent in West Virginia, meaning from the standpoint of their legislature, which is possibly true, yes, if you're going to accidentally pass a bill in this way. Or they were looking for political cover. And I got to be honest, I don't know which one. And I kind of hope they were just politically incompetent on this. Even though from the standpoint of the people in West Virginia, I would hope that this is just looking for political cover, if that makes sense. Like, to say that as Republicans, we don't necessarily want to fuck up our base, and because we want to have this kind of political distance from what's taking place, so it's easier to say incompetent as opposed to saying, you know, this is what we were behind. We need to get those teachers back to duty, so we need to do what we need to do to get those teachers back up. But we don't want to admit that we want to do that. We need some level of political cover, so in order to get that political cover, we're going to claim incompetence. Maybe, or it could just be incompetence. They might not be feigning anything. And either way, the teachers got their money. So 5% is not much at all. And I'm amazed that this is, I'm not amazed by this. Ted Kennedy having that fight in order to get a minimum wage increase. And he's screaming at the top of his lungs for a $2 increase over the course of X number of years. So workers have to fight for even the most minor of scraps. And that's what these guys did. Apparently there's another action potentially being planned in other states based on the action that these teachers had. Meaning they're having an effect outside of their own context. And I have to be honest, I really do hope this becomes somewhat of a model for the nation in these. And what I hope for is workers to have a certain amount of solidarity with themselves. Meaning you in one particular industry is not an enclave unto yourself. What industry, regardless of what industry you work in, if you're within the working class, you, for the most part, are within the same class. It's people like to make these identity differences from the standpoint of sex or gender and sex are the same thing, sex or race or sexuality. The issue here is class. The issue here is not this idea of identity. The issue here is class. That's the main distinction in the society itself. When you see the political leaders and they're talking about the governing class and all this other stuff, they're talking about people who are not you. When they're getting money and they're getting dollars from their campaign people in order to affect laws and legislation, those laws and legislation is not for you. It is for the people of their particular class, of their particular demographic, and regardless of what they say to you, in order to get you to get their vote. Meaning the nice things and the pretty words that they say in order to get you to say, here's my vote. The issue here and the distinction still continuously boils down to class. Whether you're in a union or not, you should feel some level of solidarity with the workers who are pushing for better wages. This does affect you in a positive way. Their gains, their strides are for all intents and purposes also your gains and your strides. And I don't understand why workers aren't in more solidarity on this front. I fundamentally miss that part. I don't quite understand that part. But whatever. This is a good news story. This is not going to be all that deep. This is a good news story. Good job, West Virginia. Meaning the people who was on strike, the people who pushed for their rights, or at the very least push for better benefits. Good fucking job. Good fucking job. I hope you become a model for the nation. And Senate, you need to up your game, man. If it's that level of incompetence where you guys are accidentally voting on bills, that's terrifying. That is terrifying. Each one of you should be voted out of your seats. If that's what took place, if you guys honestly didn't know the bill that you guys were voting on, I hope West Virginia is paying attention to this and they see each and every one of you, A, who was against it in the first place, and B, didn't know what the fuck legislation you were actually voting on. It's fucking amazing. Absolutely fucking amazing. But nevertheless, I'm glad they got it. I'm glad they got it. My husband is talking to me from the other room, and I'm trying to listen to him and Jamal at the same time. Oh, don't do that, Shwari. Don't tell him that. He's going to hate my guts. He's going to hate my guts. Who's that asshole on YouTube that you're listening to? Yeah, basically, they didn't know how much the bill was, and they voted for the wrong one. Yeah, that's exactly what took place. That's exactly what took place. Gardner made this really good point. Like, these goofballs are out there actually voting on laws. It is a magnificently important thing to make policy, public policy, and to vote on laws and bills that is going to affect the rest of your state. How can you not know what you're voting on? Like, you're entrusted with the powers of the people of that state. The people of West Virginia is endowing you with a certain amount of power in that particular game space that you guys find yourself, that political space. How can you not know what you're voting on? That is abysmal. That is abysmal, embarrassing. That is completely embarrassing. So I am not going to keep this one long. Workers have been divided from state level workers. Yeah, and they shouldn't be. They really shouldn't be. All of these things. All of us are unified in this. I mean, when you're talking about like the top 1% versus the bottom 99%. There is a difference in those things. Like, there's a difference in your access to goods and your vulnerabilities, meaning whether you want to talk about health or financial. There is a difference. And I'm saying the way that laws are organized, the way that the policies are structured, the way taxes are structured, the way your society is arranged, lends itself more towards one side. Regardless of what politicians tell you, they have to tell you whatever they need to tell you in order to get your vote. I'm talking about what they actually do when they're in office. That's different. And don't compare them to the previous. If you want to compare them to anything, compare them to what people were like in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. And you ask yourself, why did they change? That's the first point. And ask yourself, what are other countries around the globe doing? What services do they make the determination to afford themselves? Whether you want to talk about healthcare, or education, or some kind of child stipend. There are differences in the way that we can arrange versus the way we are arranged. Workers, part of that is understanding that there is a solidarity among each and every one of us from the standpoint of being workers. We shouldn't be divided on that. That's my point. That's my point. So I'm going to end this. Winkle was telling everyone that you're scum, etc. A couple of minutes in preparation for Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Contrary to all the things people are saying, not scum. Jeremy Chase, an oil guy, was even arguing for higher taxes. That's amazing. We can all hope this leads to more progress. Yeah, I do too. Yeah, Bob. Agreed. Agreed. Not just more progress, more action. Like, organized labor, man. The organized labor has been taking a hit. Like a severe hit throughout this country for the past 40, 50 years. And part of that has been because they haven't necessarily had an advocate in the political structure or the political space. Part of that has been in corporations expanded the playing field, meaning you can leave the country if you needed to leave the country. You could automate those resources. Automate the processes. Meaning you had a club in order to hit workers with. You can undermine the power of workers by consistently keeping them vulnerable. I like this idea of this kind of solidarity on this. And I honestly hope this becomes somewhat of a model for other places who are pushing for this kind of change or pushing for something to be different. Not just that, I hope it transfers into political action. So, good fucking job, West Virginia. And I will end it at that. Alright, guys. If you enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support through Patreon. Thanks, everyone.